I'd like to welcome our speaker for this month, Marie Khouri. She was born in Egypt and raised in Lebanon. Marie Khouri relays messages of movement and community and connection through her artworks. As an immigrant spending time across Europe before truly settling in Canada, Khouri's work speaks to a unified and diverse audience, creating sculptures that unify all communities. With her works rooted in a profound sense of dislocation and the search for a greater sense of place, her sculptures are formed through an extensive hands-on process that employs traditional sculpting techniques alongside contemporary innovations. Khouri was just honored as the Award of Distinction in the 2023 Applied Art and Design Awards by the BC Achievement Foundation. Congratulations, Marie. And one more big round of applause as Marie comes on stage. Thank you, Marie.
I was 24 hours ago, I was this far from canceling the talk. I have a dying mother in the hospital that I feel compelled to be by her side. I hosted 12 members of my family for 2.5 weeks, making breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and showing them Vancouver and so on during the holidays. I got really sick after everybody left, but rise. I managed to make it here today, and I'm very happy. When Mark initially asked me a month ago if I wanted to do the talk, I said, yes, it's going to be like a walk in the park. It's no problem. One afternoon, a few slides, and a few sentences. Little did I know that this was going to take me into a very deep thinking and recollection of my life and what I have done to really assess where this term made a difference for me. So good morning, everybody. My name is Marie Khouri. I'm a sculptor. As it was mentioned, I was born in Egypt, raised in Lebanon, with a Spanish mother, a half Italian and half Jewish father, in a Muslim country. So, I mean, if this already wasn't laying out what my life was going to be, I don't know what would. When Nasser came to power, most of the non-Muslims and European families had to flee. He nationalized everything, and my family, amongst others, had to leave, leaving everything behind that they had constructed. Most families went to Europe, Canada, the States, South America. Well, mine decided to go to a neighboring country, Lebanon, which was a beautiful country. It was bathed with sunshine. You could ski in the morning, swim in the afternoon. We've lived fabulous years until the war broke out in 1975. I was 14 years old, and I lived through a year of war, of despair, of my father's assassination, and my mother, very strong woman, decided to take us and to immigrate to Canada. So here I am, arriving in a country we couldn't speak the language, with no boundaries, no money, and we had to rise. We had to move forward. We had to identify with everybody else. We had to embrace the country as it embraced us and move forward. And so these moments of resilience and of hardship that one lives truly mark and layer what you're going to become in life. And I feel that those are really what had grounded me and given me the strength to move forward in my life. I decided to go to Europe. I was an interpreter, got married, had 3 children. We had a software company that developed, we developed programs for finance institutions. And when sold, I decided to do something that had nothing to do with my husband because I wanted to work alone. And so I took a drawing class. I had never held a pencil to draw, and I sucked at it. So my teacher literally took me by the hand and said, you know what, I think that you would be more comfortable with sculpting, the way you talk, the way you do things. And effectively, when I arrived, they gave me a little bit of clay, something to, an exercise to do, and then they asked me how long I had been sculpting for, and I said it's the first time I touched clay. And that's when my second life began. I was 35, 36 years old, and I discovered a passion that I'm so grateful to have bathed in, because it really defined the rest of my life. So going through the war was an experience. Today, everybody has televisions, we have such social media. They brought Gaza into our living rooms today. Well, 50 years ago, it was not the case. When I arrived in Canada and I said that I was coming from Lebanon, and there was a war, people, first of all, didn't know where it was, didn't know what it was. They thought maybe I was, making up things. So it was very difficult to explain and to fit in, because I felt so displaced at that time. I felt that, how come people here just a few hours flight are not aware of what's going over there? So, and this is why today I realize that whatever we're viewing, whatever we're seeing throughout these disparate countries is something that I have lived, and every time it just brings back all those memories that had been, dug really deep. My first elements of work, as you can see, truly speak of these times. I've done vessels that are reminiscent of nests a little bit. I've done shadows that to me were wanderers that were seeking refuge. I've always been looking for roots. I was de-rooted when I was 14, and then the rest of my life I spent trying to anchor myself somewhere. And every time that I did, something happened and I had to carry on and move out. Notably, when I moved to France and I decided to leave my mother and my brother behind, I started a new life. And 30 years later, we did the same, my husband and my children. I wanted to show them something else. I wanted them to speak English. We were in a comfortable situation. We had sold the company and he had a non-compete agreement. So I said, Canada, let's go there. And so I did the same thing with my kids and brought them here. So it's true that a lot of us that come from somewhere else lack these roots that we can anchor, but we in ourselves become a tree, become an anchoring element, and we can develop and reconcile wherever we are. Again, another body of work that are called the spheres, that are very ripped out, tangled, and when you see these elements at the beginning, I didn't quite realize what I was doing. They just came to be, I started sculpting them, and little by little I've come to realize now, looking back, that they did somehow respond to a lack or a need that I had of founding a residence, of founding a protection, of founding a home. Most of my work at the beginning was made in bronze. Clay is my main medium. I sculpt everything within my hands, and everything at a small scale. I can't draw. So 3D maquettes are exactly what I do. I sculpt everything in a 10 centimeter element that I upscale further on. I did another body of work that are seating. So when sculpting, I felt the need to have my sculptures be also utilitarian, not to sit as beautiful elements that are there to be viewed. I wanted them to be touched. I wanted them to be felt. I wanted people to sit on them. So these are some of the things that I have done. La chaise was one of my first seated elements. You can see it, I did it in concrete, I did it in wood. The second element was the L5 that you'll be able to view later when you move around. It's a spine. It's a spine that links 5 elements together, and it's called the L5 because it's the bottom of the Lombards. And I did it in wood and in bronze. Now, the next image is going to bring me into something that I do quite a bit of, which is public art. I was asked to do a sculpture for the 2010 Olympics that was going to sit in front of the station of the Olympic Village. Now, by driving by it and seeing what was going on, I saw that there were 3 bus stations, 1 train station, and no seating whatsoever in anywhere. And so I said, I want to do a bench. And they said, no, we don't want a bench because, you know, people are going to come and they're going to party around and they're going to drink. And coming from a European background, I thought that, no, there is a way to reconcile seating and enjoying and waiting and, you know. And so I insisted, and I gained the battle, and finally we did install what I call le banc, which is made in concrete. And it was white, and the only thing I was concerned about was tagging. I said, I'm sure the first people that are going to see it, they're going to come and tag it. Well, no, it was very appealing to skateboarders. And that was the first time that I was confronted to public art and what public art really is. Public art is something that you give to the people. It's something, it's not a show that you do in a gallery where you only decide on what you're going to do. It's not something that's confined within white walls. It is something that you're going to put out there and that people are going to decide to deal with it the way they want. So they're starting putting a lot of rubber marks on it, and I drove by it one day and they were jumping it. They loved it. Actually, they sent me videos of them doing all of those things on my bench, and they said, really cool, we love it, that's great, why don't you do a skateboard park and so on. And so I said, okay. So when I drove once, they were, playing around the bench. I pulled over and stopped, and I said, hi guys, how do you enjoy the sculpture? And they said, we love it, it's great. I said, okay, I'm the artist. And they said, shit, okay. They started cracking out. And I said, you know what, I don't mind you, that's normal. You own it. Everybody in the city owns it. But in the same title that you own it, people that need to sit on it or that are waiting for somebody should be able to use it. So maybe once in a while, we can together decide on cleaning it up, and they had started doing dents into the corners that were very rigid. So we decided to all gather and work the bench in a way that it had round edges so that it wouldn't be chopped up, and cleaning it. And it was a wonderful experience and a very, very big lesson for me. Now, does anyone here is familiar with the process of public art, or how does public art, a little bit? Okay, so public art is, there's a call that is sent out when we need to install public art in a city, and you send in an application and you decide, and they receive a bunch of applications, the city, the developer, and the art consultants. They go through it and then select and shortlist a number of artists to do it. You then are given a budget, and you come and do your presentation, just like in university when you need to. So it's competitive, it's challenging, and the reason why I do it is because it keeps me on my toes. When thinking about public art, you have to think about the area, the neighborhood, the architecture of the building, the people that are going to walk around it and that are going to enjoy it and live it. And you're given a budget, so you have to stay within the budget as well. So Vantage is one of the first public art that I did. I was at the time an artist in residence at Capilano University, and we actually built it in the university. I had some of the students that came, and I mentored them in a way that they were implicated into the process. And I think that to them and to me, it was a very great experience because they were able to see from the beginning how we apply to an art call, how we gain the process, how we build the piece, and how we install it. And so for them and for me, it was a very, very important learning curve. Let's Roll is another public art installation that I did for Richmond. Now, because there's a very big communities of immigrants and newcomers in Richmond, I decided to do a sculpture that is 3 circles. They're not similar. They play with each other, and they communicate with each other. So it was a little bit speaking about the community and how we develop and how we remain together. Now, Eyes on the Street. So Eyes on the Street is another one. This one is in the Olympic Village. It's actually 2 eyes that are looking at all the developments around them. When called for when I was invited to the call, I saw the buildings and I saw that there was only high rises that were surrounding the space in which we were going to install the sculpture. And I was reading Jane Jacobs at the time, who was an urbanist. She was in Toronto and New York, and she spoke a lot about when you're behind hedges, you are in more danger than when you are in an urban city where neighbors look at you and you look at neighbors. And so I decided to do 2 sets of eyes, a pair of eyes that sit on water and that look at you while you are looking at them. And I must say that this is one of my favorite public art installations that I have done. Cascades is another one. Another thing that I have in my career is that I choose to constantly renew myself, to constantly choose new materials, to constantly choose new ways of expressing my sculptures. So from the vessels that I had done that were my little nests, I decided to multiply them, and by multiplying them, I started to animate them with fire, water, and light. So these ones are actually fireplaces that sit on gas fireplaces, and they light. This one was 11 feet. We installed it lately. These ones are water installations. And the lights is something that took 10 years for me to come. So as artists, if they are in his room, they know that sometimes we need quite a few years for something to come into fruition. I was flirting with light. I knew I wanted to do something more to the sculptures that I had. So I started doing lighting with tea lights. And then I pushed the envelope to make them actually lit. Push the envelope to even bring them into another configuration. And now we are actually installing them in, this is a project that I'm doing where we're installing in a high-rise in downtown Vancouver. In the lobby, there are going to be 9 elements that are going to be very large. Some of them are 7 feet long, in which we are going to be fusing the glass into the metal. So again, it's always pushing the boundaries a little bit further, growing from what we started. This is another body of work that took me to Italy, in which we carved a flower in marble in Pietrasanta. And it was a very nice experience where this is the installation that was done in the home. So again, different materials, different dimensions, different needs, gallery work, public art. These things are things that allow us to really push the envelope, to really go further. And most of all, I want to talk to you here about a body of work that is really close to my heart, that is something that really made me go full circle. I developed sculptures that are basically letters in Arabic with which I can spell sentences. So the first sentence that I did, and that was shown at Equinox Gallery, was a sentence that read, "Let's sit and talk." So as always, whatever I had lived, whatever I had seen, does research in every one of my works. I wanted it to really be a strong term that could bring people together, that could link us, that could be seated on. And as you can see, it was truly an element where it brought people to embrace each other. We had it exhibited in a shorter mode at the Vancouver Art Gallery, and a lot of things happened around it. We had concerts, we had Ballet BC intervene on the pieces and dance around them. And for the one at the VAG, I decided to do a much shorter sentence that read, "I love." When arriving in Canada, I found that people used "I love" in everything. Oh my God, I love these shoes. Oh my God, I love this house. Oh my God, I love, and to me, "I love" felt like something that should really be preserved and only mentioned when felt really intensely. And so it was a little bit of a twist that I took there to express that. So here you are, seeing them. And I'm going to read you just the last thought that I have for you. And then, in a way, I believe that all my life I was preparing for this. The layers accumulated over years and continents, the difficulties faced, each contributing to my journey of rising. In essence, my journey of rising encompasses overcoming personal and social challenges, embracing change, and trusting the inner voice that led me to where I am today. I encourage each of you to internalize this positive message about taking risks and leaping into the unknown. Allow yourself to rise in your own unique way. So I hope we'll have a moment later to express, as an artist, speaking is not my forte. It's not something I really like doing. I express myself with my hands, and my work speaks for me. So you must have maybe noticed I'm a bit uncomfortable when I need to speak, and this is a long speaking speech. But we'll be able to exchange, and I'll invite you later to come over and to see effectively all of the models that I do and how things start always to be built in my hand.
Thank you. I'm Shiraz. I wanted to ask you about, first, I really liked your sculpture about let's sit and talk, because I think this is perfect time for the war going on. The opposite of war is let's talk. My question is, there are three groups you said who are involved in the decision making, the architecture, the sculpture, and the city. So who is the powerful person among the three? And I just want to ask another. In Burnaby, on Kingsway and Edmonds, there is a sculpture with the sitting horse. And the population around there, where I live, I don't think anybody is a horsey, like who rides horse on the date. So I don't know how animals are chosen. And opposite, there is a library, a public library, and they have a dolphin who doesn't read a book, I think. So I don't know how all these things are related in terms of values, because your sculpture are full of values which you hold. And I also referred sometimes to the statues, which some of them are removed, thank God, like Queen Victoria and so on. But they also represent the values of colonialism or British Empire. So can you comment on that?
Yes, that's a very good question, actually. And it truly depends of the calls, and it truly depends of which city you're working in. There's not only 3 people. Usually, they could be from 6 to 15 people that sit on a jury to select the work. Now, depending on the number of applicants that they've had, they're going to try to pull the 3 best ones that they have, or whatever they think is best that they have. So sometimes it doesn't quite fit into what they had in mind, or it doesn't quite reflect where it is, but they have to do by it. What I have to also add is that with time, things are getting more difficult. I think that 10 years ago, it was way easier to get a public art call than it is today. Today, there are international companies that are very interested. There's a lot of money involved, not for the artist really, because when you have a budget, only 20% of the budget that is given applies to the artist. But as the competition is harsh, we all try to put all the money that we get into the call to try to get it. So I often worked on projects where I almost made no money, but it didn't matter to me because I was present in a place forever. So that in itself is like existing in an open air museum. So you end up getting something out of it, and then the pleasure of having people that view your work. Now, it's true that maybe a dolphin in front of the library is not quite relevant, but again, as I say, it depends on what they got as to the applicants, and they had to select amongst what they had. They are not allowed to go out of their pool to try to get somebody else.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So, but today I think that with experiencing more and more public art, they are also getting more educated, and they're also learning from what's happening in other bigger cities like Chicago or places like this where they have extensive public art installations. And I think that what we're seeing today is more relevant to what it should happen in Vancouver. Does that answer a little bit your question?
Mm-hmm.
Yes?
Okay. Actually, I'm so sorry. We're really, really tight on time. So if we have one more question, but it has to be a super, super quick question. Okay. Sorry, I saw your hand first.
Hi, I'm Marita. Thank you so much for your talk. I just had a question about this notion of co-creation and community participation, which you shared a really beautiful story with the skateboarders, which is sort of, I heard it as a co-creation act that happened after the sculpture was already installed and conceived of by you. And I'm wondering now if there's more of a change in the commissioning process or the way that things are approved, in the sense that maybe you consult with the community or you take ideas directly from the community before the sculpture is created and installed, and whether you're sensing any sort of shift in the process by which municipalities approach public art in that way. Thank you.
We are not obliged to concert with the community. It is very direct from the developer to the architects to the art consultants and ourselves. However, I personally do that. I go to the sites and view and see what kind of community is going to engage with the work. For instance, I would not do the same thing that I would do downtown Vancouver in Burnaby or Port Coquitlam, because the applications are different. In an area, there's families, there's newcomers, or in another area, you're in a dense, vibrant, downtown area. So to me, it is very important. And if you look at, I have over 31 public art installations worldwide, and I really do my diligent work to try to install something that speaks to the community. Now, what I've done mostly is avoid doing seating that people can skateboard on or jump on, or that I learned my lesson. And I work also with materials that will not, because sometimes you're going to walk around and see that there's public art that is damaged or rusted or not shaped up. And the problem is that when the strata, the building takes over the public art, often they don't want to maintain it. It's money. So I learned that lesson as well. And what I do now is I work with materials that are stainless steel, bronze, stone, things that do not need any maintenance and that will weather, through generations with no worry. So this isn't, but again, all this comes with experience and with.
Thank you, Marie. Thank you so much, and thank you for the amazing questions, you two. Thank you, Marie.